Ancient Greek storytellers and people had a deep, complex mythology, and within that mythology, Mount Olympus was a very special place. It was the home of the Olympian Greek gods, and was known to be an incredibly beautiful place where the weather was always perfect, the food was exquisite, and the Greek gods, of course, were mesmerizingly attractive. But no human could ever visit the home of the gods at the peak of the mountain.
Just keep going. I give up.
But don't worry, we got you covered with all the details of what's exactly up there. And we sent the right guy to do it.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Homer!
Homer, you got the information? What took you so long? Got attacked by a beast. There's just mountains and forests up there. Ain't no gods. I mean, the gods live in an invisible palace so grand, no mortal human can look upon it. Like, share, and subscribe. Mount Olympus is most well known to Westerners as the abode of the Olympian gods from ancient Greek mythology. In Homer's Iliad, the dwelling place of the gods is described as an ancient Greek Acropolis, or fortified hill palace complex. The Acropolis was built just beneath the main peak, which functioned as one of the thrones of Zeus. Within the Acropolis were the palaces belonging to the gods, the main palace of Zeus and the lesser palaces of the other Olympians. The buildings of the complex were built of stone with bronze foundations, surrounded by courtyards paved with gold. The palace of Zeus had a central hall within private bedrooms and storage rooms off to the side, reflecting typical ancient Greek palaces of Homer's time period. The main hall was used both for holding divine councils and for feasts of the gods. In front of the main palace was a large courtyard where the gods would also assemble. Mount Olympus was also home to a number of immortal horses, those that pulled the chariots of the various Olympian gods, although the most famous horse found in Mount Olympus's stables was Pegasus. The winged horse would carry the thunderbolts of Zeus into battle. Alongside these horses in the stables of Mount Olympus were also the golden deers that pulled the chariots of Artemis. Entrance to and exit from Mount Olympus was only achieved by passing through golden gates, or clouds of gates. These gates were guarded by the Horai, the seasons, who would vet all those who tried to pass through. Some say that these gates were made by Hephaestus. It was commonly said that no mortal ever got to see the Acropolis of Mount Olympus. The highest peak of Mount Olympus is at 2,917 meters, with many other peaks making up the mountain. The most elevated section of Mount Olympus are often covered by clouds and snow, making it impossible for the nosy to look at the affairs of the gods. The steep side of Mount Olympus and the dense forest found upon its slopes prevented man from getting too close, and even if someone did get beyond the forest, then the mystical elements associated with Mount Olympus would make it seem invisible to the mortal eyes of the uninvited. Like Bellerophon, who sought to gain entry to Mount Olympus, for even after the Titanomachy, the fortress-like status of Mount Olympus was threatened. The greatest threat to Mount Olympus came from Typhon, the gigantic monster whose head touched the sky. All of the major gods, bar Zeus, fled Mount Olympus in the face of the monstrous Typhon, but even Zeus struggled to stand fast against the giant. Eventually, though, Zeus managed to banish Typhon to the depths of Tartarus, for Typhon was hit with 100 lightning bolts. Also, the Aloidae, gigantic twin sons of Poseidon, piled mountain upon mountain in order to reach the palaces of Mount Olympus. For the Aloidae wished to make Artemis and Hera their wives. These two giants were eventually struck down by the arrows of Apollo. Divine inhabitants of Mount Olympus. The 12 Olympians were, of course, Zeus, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, Poseidon, Hephaestus, Ares, Apollo, Artemis, Hermes, Aphrodite, and Athena. All but Hades lived on Mount Olympus. The Olympians were a family with diverse origin stories. Zeus, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, Poseidon, and Hades were the children of Cronus and Rhea. According to Greek myth, Cronus wanted to prevent one of his offspring from overthrowing him as ruler of the universe. This prompted him to eat all of his children, except for Zeus, who Rhea was able to hide from her husband. Zeus later forced Cronus to vomit out all the other children before defeating him. Zeus was the god of the sky and of weather, in addition to being ruler of the gods. Hera was the goddess of women and of the stars. Hestia was the goddess of the hearth. Demeter was the goddess of agriculture, and Poseidon was the god of the sea. Hephaestus and Ares were both children of Hera and Zeus. Hephaestus was the god of artisans, including sculptors and blacksmiths. Ares was the god of war, as well as courage and civil order. The gods Athena, Apollo, Artemis, and Hermes were Zeus's children from many of his affairs. The birth of Athena is particularly interesting. Athena is said to have emerged from Zeus's head one day when he was having a headache, after Zeus had an affair with Metis, Athena's mother. He learned from Gaia that their first male child would overthrow him, as he had overthrown his father, Cronus. Using his father's strategy, Zeus swallowed his lover Metis. Their child Athena, however, later emerged fully grown from his head and became the goddess of wisdom, practical reason, war, and urban civilization. Apollo was a god associated with prophecy and music. Artemis was associated with the hunt and childbirth. Hermes was the god of herds, travel, merchants, thievery, and among other things. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, represents the oldest generation of the Olympians. She was technically not a sibling or child of Zeus, but a sister of Cronus, as the daughter of Uranus. But there were more residents on Mount Olympus. The Olympian gods and goddesses didn't live in isolation, and a range of minor deities also lived upon Mount Olympus, at least part of the time. Hebe, the daughter of Hera and Zeus, was found there, and she was once the server of ambrosia and nectar, although after Hebe married Heracles, this role was given to the Trojan prince Ganymede. Upon the apotheosis of Heracles, the son of Zeus came to live upon Mount Olympus, and then Heracles and Hebe had two divine sons. Eros originally lived in the palace of his mother Aphrodite and remained on Mount Olympus when he married Psyche. Ariadne likewise was said to live with her husband Dionysus. Zeus also kept a number of gods and goddesses close to him, with Kratos, Nike, Baia, and Zelos normally to be found close to his throne, as were Themis and Nemesis. Close to Hera was also Iris, the goddess of the rainbow, who acted as a messenger for Zeus's wife. The 9 younger muses and 3 Charites would also spend at least part of the time on Mount Olympus. The Charites would act as attendants to Hera and Aphrodite, and there were many other nymphs who did likewise for the other gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. It is though not strictly true to say that no mortal ever saw the palaces of Mount Olympus, for in the early days of man, mortal kings, including Ixion, were welcomed there by Zeus and partook of the feasts and banquets. During their feasts, the gods would consume ambrosia and nectar. These substances came either from meadows near the world-encircling river Okeanos, or from the smoke rising from sacrifices made by human worshippers. Now coming to reality, the ancient Greeks believed that the peak of Mount Olympus was perpetually cloudless and never had storms, something that is not true of the historical Mount Olympus. It is normally matched up to the mountain of the same name still found in modern-day Greece. Mount Olympus is the highest mountain in Greece, standing at nearly 10,000 feet in height and looking out over the Aegean Sea in the east of the country. The peak has been formed by millions of years of rain, which created a solitary tower at the highest peak. The earliest humans to live in the vicinity of Mount Olympus were probably Neanderthals. The earliest archaeological evidence of Neanderthal communities near the mountain dates to about 100,000 BCE. The first modern humans, Homo sapiens, entered the area around 40,000 years ago. By 8000 BCE, humans were living in partially underground dwellings around the mountain. Around 800 BCE, they began to build stone houses. It's not known what language the original inhabitants of the region spoke, but the earliest Hellenic people in the region probably arrived during the 3rd millennium BCE. This group later split into the groups making up the people of the Aegean region, including the Macedonians, Mycenaeans, Pelasgians, Dorians, and other groups. It is not known when the ancient Greeks first began to tell stories about Mount Olympus or first considered it to be sacred. However, it is possible that some Greek stories may have been inspired by actual geological events in human prehistory in the Olympus region. One example is evidence of an asteroid or comet impact, which may have inspired stories about the battles between gods. In addition to being a sacred area, the area around Mount Olympus has also seen many battles because of its strategic position between Macedonia and Thessaly. By the time of Homer, around 800 BCE, the ancient Greeks considered Mount Olympus to be sacred. The cultic importance of Mount Olympus continued into the Christian era, as several sacred Christian sites also exist within the region. The Chapel of Elias, the highest elevation chapel in the Eastern Orthodox world, is built on one of its nearby peaks. On St. Anthony's Peak, one of the lower peaks near Mount Olympus, there is evidence of a shrine or sanctuary where sacrifices would be made to Zeus. The evidence includes burned bones and artifacts like images of thunderbolts. Throughout history, adventurers and explorers have regularly attempted to climb this mountain peak for no other reason but to find the divine. Unfortunately, no climber has yet to find the golden palaces of the Greek gods. Of course not. It's invisible, but it's there. If you liked our video, don't forget to subscribe and follow our channel for more videos like this one.